As soon as Cary Grant entered a room, the attention of everyone present was immediately drawn to him. His charming good looks and magnetic personality made him a favorite among people of both sexes. Not only was he attractive, but he exemplified all that was cool about him. He was the perfect example of the ideal man of his era. Simply put, Cary Grant was flawless in every way. In addition to his charismatic personality, he was distinguished by a number of other qualities. While Grant's public presence was dazzling, his professional life was quite as impressive. When he was at the height of his career in Hollywood, he was unbeatable. Moreover, the American Film Institute placed him in second place among male stars, only behind the legendary Humphrey Bogart to receive that honor. In spite of his popularity, money, and the roles that earned him acclaim, Cary Grant's life was anything but idyllic. On the other hand, it is essential to point out that his life was anything but perfect. In point of fact, it was characterized by a tragedy that started when he was a young childhood boy. It has been years since his death, but his ex-wife has finally spoken out, revealing the heartbreaking reality of the struggles he faced on the inside. In addition, we will walk you through the process in this video. To put it simply, Cary Grant's childhood was a living nightmare, which is in stark contrast to the glossy character he would later become known for. Cary Leach, actually Archibald Alexander Leach, was born on January 18, 1904 in Bristol, England. He is best known by his nickname. It was a challenging and destitute region in which he lived, and he had to contend with difficulties on a daily basis. In the vicinity of him, individuals were misusing alcohol as a means of numbing the pain of living in an environment in which his family was already fighting to make ends meet. Elias Leach, the father of the upcoming celebrity, was not an exception, which is a very unfortunate circumstance. It was because of Elias drinking that the foundation of the family started to fall apart. He was someone who drank on a regular basis. When Grant was a young man, he had a keen awareness of the disorder that his father's addiction generated in the kitchen and living room. Elias' drinking led to him being emotionally and physically unable of providing assistance to the family, in addition to diminishing the already few resources that were accessible to them. The fact that Cary had a significant need for a father figure. The fact that Elias was present did not change the fact that he was frequently untrustworthy and emotionally distant. Though she was going through a difficult time in a different way than he was, his mother Elsie was also going through a difficult time. Tragically, Elsie's profound melancholy did not receive treatment and was not adequately acknowledged until the death of her son John, who was also Cary's brother. Young Cary yearned for the love and attention that her mother could never give her because she was too distracted with her own sadness. Cary's mother was unable to offer her with these things. It was impossible for his mother to provide him with the necessary care and support since she was too consumed with her own sorrow. Despite the fact that he desired she could be there for him in every way possible. The issue was made even more difficult by the fact that Cary, who was only 9 years old at the time, was witness to the most traumatic event of his childhood. It was then when his mother disappeared without a trace. The information that his father had provided to him was incorrect. His mother had not gone on a lengthy vacation. Despite the fact that his son was unaware of it, Elias had actually committed her to a mental institution. Cary felt even more abandoned and upset for a long time since he assumed his mother had purposefully deserted him. Cary was left to fend for himself because they were emotionally unavailable to him by that point. Beginning at a young age, he acquired the ability to suppress the inner agony that he was experiencing by creating an image of self-assurance and charisma. Because of this, he was able to triumph over the feelings of alienation and horror that he had been experiencing. It was through the usage of this disguise that he would finally acquire the charisma and charm that would make him a well-known figure in the Hollywood industry. The unfortunate reality is that no one was aware of the fact that it stemmed from his need to protect himself from the distressing recollections of his youth. During a time when Grant's life seemed to be falling apart, he was surprised to find a ray of hope in an unexpected place. This particular place was the theater. The theater served as a means of escape for him from the emotionally and physically harsh environment in which he was raised. It was possible for him to find relief from the pressures of everyday life and to discover a sense of accomplishment via his pursuit of artistic expression. As a child, one of the few things that brought him joy was going to see Christmas pantomimes with his father. The young Cary developed a passion for theater as a result of these visits, despite the friction that existed in their relationship, something that would eventually prove to be her savior. At a relatively short period of time, Cary began to increase the frequency with which she went to the theater. Immediately after he became friends with the Bob Pender stage group, which is an acrobatic dance team, he experienced a sense of belonging that he had been lacking in his previous environment. Cary was thrilled to become a member of this ensemble, since it provided him with the chance to explore a new ground in terms of creative expression and vocal performance. After completing his training as a stilt walker, he decided to become a member of the ensemble. The theater gave him more than just an outlet, it also gave him a sense of purpose. With each performance, not only did Cary enjoy being on stage more and more, but he also felt a greater connection to the audience, which only helped to strengthen his passion for the theater. Cary's love for the theater only grew throughout the years. When he was 13 years old, he began working backstage at Bristol theaters. He was involved in the theater profession at every turn, learning the ropes and gaining experience in the industry. Even during the shows that magician David Devante gave at the Bristol Empire, he ended up being in charge of the lights. As he developed a deeper appreciation for the theater, he began to view the time he spent working behind the scenes as a way to alleviate the melancholy that permeated his family life. This was not the case in school, where things were different. However, Cary never showed any enthusiasm for his schooling, despite the fact that he had acceptable academic skills. Apart from his attractiveness and his acrobatic ability, he was a sports prodigy, particularly in the game of fives. He was a brilliant athlete. On the other hand, he had a cheeky side and would rather play with his friends than complete his homework. He was a naughty person. Cary's exit from school was ultimately due to the fact that he had no interest in furthering his studies. According to some, he was either discovered in the lavatory reserved for female students, or he was involved in a theft with a large number of his peers. On the other hand, additional information was included. Cary had already made up her mind to quit school and pursue a career in the entertainment industry. Just 3 days after being kicked out of the Penders, he went back to the school, resolute in his determination to pursue his goals. Cary would be able to have a steady income, housing, and because to the fact that his father had co-signed a contract with the Penders when he began working in Southampton, he was able to continue taking dancing courses until he became 18 years old. At this point, he started down the route that would eventually lead him into the production sector. Carrying on with his career was made possible for Cary by his decision to join the Pender Group. Cary's life began to take a new path, becoming more interesting to her. When he was performing pantomimes all across the country, the child's body, which was slim, nimble, and perfectly under control, became a trademark of his acting approach. It was through his involvement in the activities of the troupes that he was able to expand his skill set and get experience in the entertainment sector. On July 21, 1920, The Pender Ensemble embarked on their journey to the United States of America on the RMS Olympic. This served as their big break. Cary, who was only 16 years old at the time, could not help but feel that the journey across the Atlantic represented a new beginning for her. While he was on board, he was confronted with an unanticipated event that would forever alter the course of his life. Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford, two of the most famous performers in Hollywood, were on their honeymoon together on the same ship. During the time that Cary spent playing shuffleboard with Fairbanks, he ended up gaining a great deal of knowledge. Cary was always eager to pick the brains of people he looked up to. It was inevitable that Cary would eventually take on the actor's charm, self-assurance, and bodily appearance. After arriving in New York, Cary and the Pender troupe gave a performance at the New York Hippodrome, which at the time was the largest theater in the world and could accommodate more than 6,000 people due to its capacity. Cary was able to participate in 12 plays every week for a period of 9 months, which was a remarkable achievement for a child of his age to accomplish on such a prominent stage. As a result of the difficult schedule, his dedication and enthusiasm for the profession were clearly visible. After a long period of hard work, Cary was finally able to see the fruits of his labor when the creation of Good Times was completely successful. The more people heard about his performances, the more he began to believe that a career in the entertainment industry was not an impossible dream, but rather within his reach. It was during the period of transition from the 1920s to the 1930s when Cary's career began to acquire acceleration. Musicals and comedies performed on stage in the United States were dominated by him, progressively gaining a reputation as an entertainer with a wide range of skills. After signing a contract with Paramount Pictures in 1932, he was finally able to make a name for himself in the Hollywood industry. On the other hand, the executives at the studio believed that his true name, Archie Leitch, did not have the ring of a starring man. They came to the conclusion that he should be renamed Cary Grant, a name that would later come to be associated with sophistication and refinement in society. In 1941, Cary made the decision to legally settle on the name. Total transformation into the famous persona that Hollywood would come to recognize and adore over the course of his career. After beginning his career in Hollywood with small roles in low-budget films and short films, Cary soon rose to prominence and became a household name. His portrayal as a wealthy playboy in Blonde Venus caught the curiosity of those who watched the film as well as those who reviewed it, indicating the advent of star power. Not until 1933, however, did Cary's career start to take off, and it was all thanks to Mae West that this happened. In the two films that have grossed the most money, she chose him to play the lead role. Because she recognized something remarkable in him, she wrote the song She'd Done Him Wrong, and I'm No Angel. Because of her roles in these films, Cary became a well-known figure in the Hollywood industry. Although Cary appeared to be reserved in these early films, he was actually discreetly establishing the on-screen image that would come to characterize his career. This image would come to define his career. As a result of his sophisticated good looks and graceful performance, he became an instant sex landmark. He was a person who was kind and welcoming, and he did not come across as threatening. He was especially noticeable owing to the peculiar way he spoke. He is making an attempt to get rid of his Cockney accent. Cary established a clipped and unusual speech pattern, which served to heighten his magnetism and create an indelible impact on audiences when he spoke. In 1935, when Cary Grant's contract with Paramount came to an end, he was already a well-known figure in mainstream culture. He was a great star. Nevertheless, in contrast to his contemporaries, Cary was not the type of person to be imprisoned. In order to take control of his professional life and work on projects that attracted his interest, he decided to pursue a career in freelancing. Given the decision that was made, Cary was able to produce a remarkable body of work that, among other things, includes some of the greatest actors in the history of film. By the late 1930s and early 1940s, he had established himself as one of the most well-liked leading men in Hollywood, seamlessly combining comedy and action roles without much difficulty. The screwball comedies that Grant directed, notably those featuring Katharine Hepburn, brought him widespread recognition and made him a household name. During films such as Holiday and Bringing Up Baby, where Grant's comedic timing and charm truly shone, you were able to feel the combustible connection that existed between them. Grant and Irene Dunne, with whom he also found a woman who was a wonderful match for him, appeared together in the film The Awful Truth and My Favorite Wife. However, Grant was not trying to make a joke when he said that these films will become classics because of the wonderful banter and electric chemistry that they displayed on screen. His first nomination for an Academy Award was for Penny Serenade, and it was in that film that he expressed the breadth and depth of his feelings. The comedy roles that Grant played were just as remarkable as the action roles that he came in. The flicks Gunga Din and Only Angels Have Wings were excellent examples of his twin talents as an actor and a charmer. His charisma was on full display in both of these films. It was his collaborations with well-known directors, such as Frank Capra and Howard Hawks, that contributed to the further consolidation of his star power. His work with Alfred Hitchcock, on the other hand, was the thing that actually set him apart from others. While others had highlighted Grant's more lighthearted side, Hitchcock was able to detect a more sinister aspect. Notorious and Suspicion are two examples of films in which Grant introduced a new depth to his on-screen presence by portraying characters who were not only complicated but also morally complex. Throughout the course of his career, Grant continuously accepted roles that provided him with the opportunity to showcase his level of versatility. To Catch a Thief, a film directed by Whitty Caper, featured him in a co-starring role alongside Grace Kelly. This legendary performance of his in North by Northwest, which deftly mixed humor and suspense, further solidified his status as a prominent figure in the Hollywood industry. In spite of the fact that Grant was never a contender for an Academy Award, his influence on the film industry is unsurpassed. The roles that he played in cinematic masterpieces like An Affair to Remember and Mr. The concept of luck will never become obsolete. Sadly, the traumas that Cary endured as a youngster had a significant impact on his life behind the camera, despite the fact that he reached iconic success and became famous throughout the history of the entertainment industry. Regrettably, he was never able to overcome these wounds, and they followed him around like a shadow the entire time. In his infancy and early adulthood, Grant was under the impression that his mother, Elsie Leitch, had passed away. She had been absent from him for a considerable amount of time. Grant's father put Elsie to a mental institution when she was 9 years old, and this is the story that he told him after the fact. In order to treat her manic depressive episodes, Elsie remained a patient at the Glenside Hospital in Bristol for close to 20 years. By the time Grant discovered the truth in 1938, he had already established himself as a prominent figure in the Hollywood industry. According to what one might assume, he was taken aback when he learned from a relative that his mother was still alive and doing well. In an effort to make amends with her, Grant traveled back to England. Their encounter was marked by a combination of happiness and melancholy. The fact that Elsie had spent so many years in a mental institution left her emotionally vulnerable and gave her the impression that she was cut off from the outside world. In spite of Grant's best efforts to comfort his mother upon their reunion, which included moving her to a more suitable home and paying frequent visits, the damage had already been done. The years that Elsie spent in the facility and the extended period of time that she was separated from her son were traumatic experiences from which she never fully recovered. The absence of Grant's parents during his formative years left a void that remained in his life and relationships in particular. This void lingered throughout his life. One of his greatest concerns was that the people he loved about would abandon him. Just like when he was a child and felt his mother had abandoned him, he feared that they would abandon him. Throughout his marriage and his love encounters, he consistently carried this fear with him. There was not a single one of Grant's 5 marriages that was able to survive. Despite his best attempts, he got into each marriage with the intention of finding love and security, but his fear of being abandoned stopped him from achieving those goals. The petition for dissolution of marriage that he submitted was submitted in 1934, a little more than a year after he had tied the knot with Virginia Sherrill. According to Virginia, Grant is the one who reportedly touched her. Not only did her demand that Grant pay her a significant amount each week, but it was also the factor that made their breakup even more surprising. The second one of his high-profile relationships was his marriage to the wealthy heiress Barbara Hutton. He was involved in this relationship for a while. The couple's marriage only lasted for 3 years, coming to an end in 1945. In spite of their instantaneous attachment. Because of Hutton's great riches, they were referred to as Cash and Cary, which is a moniker.